Welcome to the PayScale Insight 101 training webinar. My name is Diane Schumann, and we also have Michaela Ayres here. We're going to be walking through some of the basics of Insight, the navigation, and how to get your account set up and going. Right here is going to be the dashboard or the home page of your account. You'll see up here there's a teal toolbar that will help you navigate around. Whether it's coming back to our dashboard here, jumping into the workforce, which is the inputs for your account, including your employees, their roles, and the markets they might reside in. Over here is the market reports or market data for your account, really all the outputs of once you take a job and run it in a market. Over here is your strategy and analytics. On today's webinar, we won't be talking about this too much today, but know this is where you can come in to build out ranges and targets, utilize the Analytics Launchpad, or the Raise Recommender. Down below here, we call out some of our more popular reports in the tool. Fast Moving Jobs is going to show any hot jobs that have moved more than 3% in your account. Market Outliers is going to show any employees below the 10th percentile or above the 90th. And Range Outliers, if you upload or create a structure with us, will show any employees who are falling outside of that. So any red or green circled employees. Down below here is the recent activity. This essentially acts like a news feed for you to see recent employees that have been added, their roles or jobs that have been created, and reports that have been run. The first thing we're going to check out in your account here is under your workforce, your employees section. Now, this is more than likely probably uploaded based upon an Excel file you may have sent over or from your HRIS system. And you're going to see here an employee ID, which is required in our tool, their names, title, job code and internal job title, location, and some pay information. Some things to note is if you don't have job codes with your job titles, that's fine. Just duplicate the job title as the job code. And if you're not able to populate all this information right away, that's fine too. A lot of this information people will add later on in their account, such as performance ratings or even, the grade or range they might be falling in. If you ever need to add an employee, you can always click on this green plus button here. Or if you need to remove one out, simply select your employee and click delete. Now we do advise at least once a year taking this entire workforce and exporting it out and then updating it by adding, deleting, and making changes to the necessary employees. And this is what's called a refresh upload. And we definitely, your CSM will be reaching out to you probably within a year to remind you of this. You also can click on any orange hyperlink of your employees if you need to edit or change anything, to either edit some of the details, whether it's adding, changing their market, or even changing what job they're tied to. You also on the second page can add some additional details, such as any different bonus structure you might have or pay history. The last thing here is an example of your employees' benefits we can upload. This is a separate Excel upload that we can send over to you that just shows the different benefits and the amounts so you can tailor it towards each employee, towards the total company contribution so they get a much better picture of what might be going on in their package. The last thing I'm going to show you on this page is your EE Comp report. This is a tailored report for the individual, and each level of transparency here is going to show different amounts of data and information. The low transparency shows very limited information, while the high transparency will show a pretty complete picture of the market data and their performance. I'll go ahead and create a high transparency here. I'll go ahead and view my report. And here I'll see the title page for my employee. We have a compensation philosophy page, which is completely customizable under the account settings. A lot of people will either put a company's mission statement in here or just override some of the pre-populated text. Down below here is a compensation summary, so you can show the employee what their base pay might be, any bonus information, and where they might be falling relative in their range and their range penetration. You also can include their employee's pay history here, so you can show each year how their pay has changed internally in the company. On this next page, which isn't included on the low transparency, you can start to show them some more of their market data, where they're falling relative to the market, and from the 10th through the 90th percentile, a little bit about their position, and some possible market trends for the year. The next page here is dealing more again with their range penetration, how their performance is falling relatively to others, where they're falling in their range compared to their organization, and where they're falling in their range compared to other people in their department. Here's where the benefits page would be populated, so you can tailor it towards that employee. And the final page, some FAQs, which again you can customize just like the philosophy page. That is some of the basics over the employee section. Next, Michaela is going to take us a little bit through the labor markets piece of your account.
Great, thanks Diane. So in this portion of the tool, we're really thinking about where are you competing for talent? So not necessarily just what is your line of business and what is an organization just like you pay, but what is the competitive market for your jobs in your area? So in this example today, we're looking at an organization that has 2 locations, thinking about their jobs in Seattle versus maybe their smaller workforce in Portland. So the helpful thing to think about when you're coming into your labor market is, again, thinking about your talent pool. What organizations around you would have the same types of jobs? Maybe what roles are technical and are more competitive in the market? So you can come in and create a strategy that would align to that piece of where are you looking for your talent. So up above, we can click on this plus sign to go ahead and add in a new segment. So of course, the very first question is, what do you want to call this market? So each display name just needs to be unique. So maybe today we can be thinking about this job just as in the case of thinking about a larger competitor. In the location scope, you have 3 options by drilling down on the data by a city metro area, capturing a statewide average, or of course the widest, which would be a national average. After you make that selection, we'll move on to more specific questions about those types of organizations. In terms of organization type, in this drop-down, you can choose where, again, do you want to be competing for that talent. Are they other for-profit companies? Perhaps you're in the non-profit space. You even can choose which federal or local competitive market might be more relevant for your jobs. The next part is going to be thinking about what industry could you be competing with for these jobs. This is a keyword search, so you can just simply start typing to see what other segments could you possibly be competing with for your jobs. So if we're thinking about our large competitor in Seattle, there's definitely a large workforce here of multinational 1,000-seat companies that could potentially have similar roles in that software development world. So as you can see, you can choose a subcategory within that industry to be specific to a particular area, Or if you want to capture a broader average and perhaps include all of the subcategories, we would suggest choosing the family. The next question, of course, is going to be, what is that average seat size of a larger competitor in your area? And this is going to ask you for a specific number, and just go ahead and move forward with whatever the one feels most comfortable to get a comparison. So helpful things to think about in this case are, again, are you projecting growth? Are you noticing a trend of people coming to you or from larger competitors? This is a question that is definitely one of those influencers of pay. More specific questions down below, thinking about a specific annual revenue typically held by an organization in this segment, which is a pretty specific question. If you don't have a strategy around a specific annualized revenue, feel free to leave this question blank, and thereby capturing a broader average. You can choose government contractor if that's going to be relevant for your roles. And on the next page, we'll see some more specific questions again about a specific filing status or even a stock exchange listing if that were to be important. So all of these options are here for you if you do want to be specific. But again, by leaving them unanswered, we can capture a broader average. Down below, these are custom groupings or fields that are here for you if you want to include things like labeling regions or labeling your grade schedules. They don't have any impact on the data, so don't feel like you have to use them unless they're valuable. So as you can see in the labor market section, we've assigned our employees to the competitive markets where we want to see information. But the beauty of this piece is we can run our market report across multiple markets to see how they're comparing and to get a better sense of how those influencers are going to impact your roles. So speaking of jobs, we'll go ahead and move up to your workforce and move into those positions. This is where all of the information about your jobs have been input, and in this case, showing us the work that's been done to benchmark these positions. So maybe for you, when you first log in, you'll be viewing this by a more standard view, which is showing you a more concise column view that includes, of course, the number of employees and that brief job summary. So the beauty of the tool is it functions a lot like Excel. So by clicking on any of those headers, it'll shuffle and sort to your preferred view. Another way to look at this is by viewing it by full details, which will allow you just to see all of the columns and all of the inputs that have been benchmarked for these roles. So it can be a really great way to come in and review all of the data on one pane. And just as a reminder, anything in a table can be downloaded. So by selecting that column, you'll see the ability to choose which option is best to go ahead and select, and then up above, download. But let's walk through how to add in a position today. So that plus sign will prompt us to add in a new job and start at the very beginning, which is going to ask us, of course, what is this job called? And again, if you don't have a job code, no need to reinvent the wheel. You can just simply use your title as your job code. More optional fields are in here if you would like to, again, take advantage of them for the job, but 100% optional. But we'll go ahead and use this magnifying glass to start our search. So as you can see, as you start typing, the system will start to generate titles based off of your search. So since the database is dynamic, you're going to notice it's pulling up other titles similar. So more niche titles like software quality assurance, regular quality assurance. Also things like levels will be in the tool. So our best practice is to ensure that not only is it what is that job called, but what are their core tasks. So you will see that called out in bullet points underneath that title. There's a shadow off to the right showing you in this case there are more responsibilities to review to ensure that what this job in the market is doing is aligning and is relevant to what your job is also doing. So the best practice is to say at least 70% of these core tasks are aligning to your job in order for us to choose that as a best practice. If you do want to compare multiple titles, we encourage you to use the link here for Save for Consideration. That will just allow you to pull that title up to the top, and now you can continue your search, or you could even change what your keyword search is to get a better and more maybe comprehensive look at some other titles in the database. So at this point, we're ready to choose, and we'll go ahead and move forward with this title. So on this next page, these are more inputs about this job and what are your requirements. This big blue number is going to be assigned to those labor markets that we just discussed. You can change it to whatever market you'd prefer. It's giving you that estimate of the 50th percentile based off of your labor market. So the very first question is going to be about typical years of experience. And what this question is really asking you for is how many years are typical for someone at full proficiency for this role? You'll see that we're asking there's a field for a minimum, and then what is that years to proficiency? So in this scenario, we can go ahead and input what would be that range for typical years to proficiency for this role. Off to the right, there's a graph that can help you if this is a harder question. Maybe you don't have a job description in front of you, or you maybe aren't sure what is that typical market proficiency. It's highlighting in green and can be a helpful guide to see where are people seeing a shift in their pay as they get those years to experience. In education, this drop-down will allow you to select your true requirement. Whenever you say PayScale recommends, that's really just our way of telling you that's the most popular answer, but of course we want you to choose what is your true requirement. You have the ability to select whether or not this role supervises others. By selecting yes, you'll notice more questions will be fulfilled to see, in this case, what is that typical number of people who would report to this title? And an important thing would be to remember it's for direct and indirect reports. Allowing you also to be specific to what is that level of management. Maybe in our scenario today, they're an individual professional. And then down below those people management tasks, choose the ones that are aligning to that role. Now on to skills and specialties. What you'll see on the splash page are popular answers, which will allow you just to choose and move them into your search bar. But this is also a great way to search in the database. So in this case, thinking about what specific software languages would we want this person to know, or maybe what systems do you all use, or skills that you would really want or require. You can have up to 7. And moving on to certifications and licenses, it's the same functionality, allowing you to search in the database or choose from popular answers. So at this point, we're ready to go ahead and save and create our report. And now we can choose the markets that we want to see this data in. So if we want to get a comparison across our Seattle and Portland office, and then maybe also our large competitor to see how those 3 are comparing. So after you select your markets, simply run the market reports. And now I'll pass it off to Diane to walk us through the different ways to look at the reports.
Here you're going to see 3 reports for the same role. You'll see today's date, your internal title, the PayScale title was matched to, and each market laid out here. So you can see a nice overall view of the market data here from the 10th through the 90th percentile. 10th percentile, low end of the market, 90% of people make more than that dollar figure in this role, in this market. What's nice here is right now we're looking at the TCC, which is total cash compensation. Typically base plus bonus plus commission and profit sharing. What's nice here is if you don't want to look at TCC, you can use this drop down here to look at just a base pay view if that's going to be more useful, a hourly rate view, or a few other views down below here. What's also useful is you can also start to see if you have internal ranges built out, what they might look like. For this view right now, they're blank, but if I go ahead and click on this clear button, it's not going to delete anything, it's just removing a filter. I can see all my other reports I've ran with my jobs and the ones that might have ranges from the minimum to the maximum. What's also nice here is I can see what target percentile I'm looking at. You can edit this or change this depending on your strategy. How close or far away my midpoint of my range is to my target, and where my employees are falling relative to that range. So anyone over here that's green is a green circle falling outside the minimum, red above the maximum of my range, and in the blues within the range, or that solid blue right on my midpoint. You can also click this view by employee name here in this orange hyperlink to add another column in, which would include your employees' information. So here I can see my employees' IDs, their titles, their names. In the green, their current base pay. In the purple, the market data. And some analytics that are showing a delta dollar difference of how close or far away that their pay is from the 50th. So you can see this employee here, it's about 20,000 over the 50th percentile. They have a market ratio that is reflecting what I'm targeting. Anything at 1 means they're being paid right on target, and anything above or below 1 indicates that they're off target. And finally, what percentile that employee is falling at. And again, I can use this drop down to incorporate that whole view. We'll go back to annualized base pay with this. And you can then see that nice whole view of here's my employees' pay, all their ranges, and the market data. So you get a nice full view of not only where the employee is falling relative to your structure, but also to the market. All of this, again, you can simply select if you want to export into a CSV, an Excel, or PDF to share offline. Going back to the jobs section with the market data, the one last view we do want to show you is the report details here. And I'm just going to click on this orange view. And here I can view the detailed market data report for my role. This breaks out just all the different forms of pay nicely from the TCC, salary, bonus, hourly rate, all from the 10th through the 90th percentile. But what I like most about this report is right here, there's a little percentage reported in each box. This tells me 91% of people in this role, in this market, receive a salary versus an hourly rate. Only 34% receive a bonus and 3% receive profit sharing, letting me know how typical certain forms of pay are. Up here you might notice a report rating. This is just indicating the variability of pay for your role. So a 4 or 5 like this means pay is fairly consistent in the market. So the way I visualize it is imagine your profile's all on a bell curve. That bell curve is going to be pretty much all around that 50th percentile for where people are typically paid around a little variance. While a 1 or 2 doesn't mean it's a bad report, it just means it's going to be much more wide of a bell curve because people are much more spread across the board. Typically we see that for some C-suite jobs or sales type roles. Down below here we do have some other reports. The job summary just reviews nicely how the jobs match and which factors play the biggest impact for pay from top to bottom. And also we have some additional report details here that I highly encourage you to explore on your own time. And again, all of this can be shared in the custom or summary report. Custom report's about 30 pages, pretty in-depth, while the summary report's just about a 6-page PDF. Well, I hope you enjoyed our webinar today, and thank you again for joining us.